And so understanding the mind is essential to understanding Buddhism. And actually understanding the mind is essential to some peace and clarity. And so studying and understanding Lorig provides very helpful tools to understanding our minds. In the process of becoming a Buddha, a fully awakened one, it requires systematically purifying and enhancing the mind. And since the body and mind, although associated, are not inseparably linked, they have different substantial causes. This means that the development of the mind is not limited to that of the body. The continuum of the body ceases at death, but that of the mind does not. The mind is an impermanent phenomenon, changing each moment, having the nature of clear light, and pure in its nature. It is stained by adventitious defilements, but these can be removed. The mind can be totally purified. And the stages in this process of purification constitute the levels of progress toward awakening. And so we study Lorig to be able to use our full potential, understand our mind, and then use that understanding to tap into our vast potential. So tonight as we review, let's really rejoice that we are creating the causes for full awakening. And we do all of this for the benefit of all. Hello. So first I want to say that this topic is quite complex, and I barely understand it, so I've really used references, Venerable Children and Mind in Tibetan Buddhism, Ladi Rinpoche's book, and also a teaching that Geshe Tekchok did on Lorig. So those are my sources. When I study a topic like this, if I can't put it into some relevance to my practice, it's quite hard for me to learn it. So tonight I'm going to try to keep putting it into the relevance of our practice today, what we're doing. And since much of it is about terms and new vocabulary, it's kind of easy to get discouraged with the content. So it helps to keep, I think, this broad view of how this fits in and what's its utility is in what we're doing here. And now we have a phone that's working, I think. Good. So, so I first want to just review what awareness and knowledge is, what this topic is about. So it's primarily an identification of the different types of minds, of consciousnesses which occur in our mental continuum. And it introduces vocabulary connected with the mind and a means of training in the process of reasoning. And consciousnesses then are examined mainly by dividing it into types and subtypes from different points of view. And through study then we get a sense of these variety of consciousnesses and their functions and their interrelationships. And the primary source of awareness and knowledge comes from the great Indian commentators, Dignaga's Compendium on Prime Cognition and Dharmakirti's 7 treatises on prime cognition. And in one of the books, I read that this sevenfold division of awareness and knowledge, only 4 of them, the direct perceivers, inferential cognizers, doubt, and wrong consciousnesses, were mentioned by name either by Dignaga or Dharmakirti. The remaining 3, subsequent cognizers, correctly assuming consciousness, and inattentive perceivers, were not explicitly mentioned. And so this is where the Tibetans contributed to this topic, so both in systematizing it and refining the use of terminology. And then the other question I had about this content, this topic, was since what we primarily study here is prasangika tenet, ways of looking at the teachings, my question was, how does this information then help me with that? And I found some wonderful information by Anne Klein in her book, Knowing, Naming, and Negation. And she writes, studying Sautrantika following reasoning is significant for understanding Madhyamaka in 3 important ways. Its description of ultimate truths as specifically characterized phenomena helps identify that which is negated in the Prasangika Madhyamaka theory on emptiness. Secondly, its discussion of the relationship between thought and direct perception provides a rationale for the technique or modus operandi of analytical reflection. And so this is especially helpful when we're dealing with phenomena that is very obscure. And then third, its presentation of negative phenomena, which we didn't study much about, but nonetheless, especially the non-affirming negatives, gives an important context for prasangika discussions of emptiness, a non-affirming negative, which is described as the mere absence of inherent existence. So after I read that, then it really seemed to me like this was quite a foundational piece, which is needed in which to then build upon our understanding and to be able to use this knowledge to understand the prasangika way of looking at. And then the other thing I was thinking is, when I was studying this, I had a conversation with Ruby this morning at breakfast that low rig reminds me of when I studied chemistry. All these terms, all these equations that didn't seem to have any relevancy at all. And it took quite a while for me to see how it had some usefulness. It's quite a steep learning curve. And so low rig to me is quite like that. So I think just to continue to go over it and over it, then we get more clear about it. So we're doing the quiz tonight, and with all these questions, I'm going to give a little filler, a little background about the topic so that it's within some context always, instead of just throwing out the questions. So the first question is in reference to inattentive perceivers. Does somebody have the definition of inattentive perceiver? Even though that's not on the quiz.
The closest I have is that the engaged object to the mind, apprehending it, the engaged object appears to the mind, but the mind is unable to ascertain it because it's focused on some other object of the senses or something in the conceptual mind that's drawing it away.
Yeah. So, so the simple definition is a mind to which the object appears but is not ascertained. Yeah. The specific from our root text, it's a knower to which the specifically characterized phenomenon, that is its engaged object, clearly appears, but which is unable to induce ascertainment with respect to it, is the definition of an inattentive perceiver. So then the first question is, according to Sautrantika, what is a specifically characterized object?
An existent.
An object that is ultimately able to perform a function. Existent.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So, pardon? Oh, yeah, yeah. So it is a specifically characterized object. A specifically characterized object is a phenomenon which is ultimately able to perform a function and existent. So in the from the book Mind in Tibetan Buddhism, it talks a bit about specifically characterized phenomena, which I thought was kind of important and interesting. So I thought I'd read it. In the Sautrantika system, specifically characterized phenomena is synonymous with an impermanent phenomena. The use of the term specifically characterized phenomena emphasizes that, unlike permanent phenomena, which are mere imputations by thought, impermanent things have their own uncommon or specific characteristics, which can appear to a direct perceiver. An awareness to which an object appears but is not ascertained is a type of direct perceiver, set forth separately within the sevenfold division of awareness and knowers to emphasize that not all direct perceivers are minds which realize their objects. Like direct perceivers, though, they are non-conceptual consciousnesses, which are non-mistaken with respect to the object they are comprehending. However, these are minds which, for some reason, such as one's attention being intently directed elsewhere, or the duration of the consciousness being too brief to be noticed, are unable to subsequently induce ascertainment, knowing that one had that particular perception. And one of the examples they give is walking down the street, intently engaged in conversation with somebody and having an awareness of people walking by you, but later when you try to recall, you cannot bring up the image of those people. You can't recall who walked by you. And such a mind is not mistaken, for that it does not perceive something that is not actually so, but it has not introduced an element of error, so it is included among direct perceivers. But it doesn't provide reliable information and has no factor of certainty. It is not considered to realize its object or to be incontrovertible. So next topic we're going to start on is inferences. And these are important. Since the root cause of the endless round of birth, aging, sickness, and death is the misapprehension of self where there is none, to free ourselves from this suffering is to identify this misapprehension through reasoning. And an inference is the end result of this specific process of reasoning. And I thought to just go through this whole process of using these 7 consciousnesses that we've been studying about to just review how we go through something and get clear about it, to see the sequence. So we first begin with a wrong view, and we can use the example of the idea that there's a substantially existent self. And so as long as that idea is held forcefully, what kind of consciousness is that? Wrong, yeah. Then it's wrong consciousness. Then hearing teachings of selflessness, one might begin to wonder whether in fact there is such a self. At this point, what are we generating? Doubt. And what are the 3 types of doubt? How do we go through that process?
Inclining towards the wrong conclusion, sort of middle, and inclining towards the correct one.
The correct one, yeah. So first, initially think that there probably is a self, that's doubt tending toward the fact. And through repeatedly thinking about this, then we pass through the stage of equal doubt, wondering whether or not, and really not having a conclusion one way or the other. And that eventually developing doubt tending to the fact, in which we feel that there probably is no self, but is nonetheless, we're still uncertain. So then the next step in the development of the view of selflessness is to generate a correct assuming consciousness, one that definitely decides that there is no substantially existent self. At this point, what are we holding? What kind of view?
Correct assumption.
Yeah, correct view. Yeah. So again, though, even though we have a correct assumption, and this initial generation of correct assumption is a very powerful experience, we still haven't realized, of course, selflessness. So now the next process is that we contemplate this again and 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 again using reasoning, and continually going over it and over it, seeking to develop a certainty from which one cannot be shaken. And for this conclusion to have the force of reasoned conviction, one must go through the steps of this investigation over and over again. One's consciousness throughout this process of familiarization are correct assumptions. When it is brought to the point of unwavering certainty, one generates an inference. And at that point, one's realization is still conceptual. It's still getting at selflessness only by way of an image. And the goal is to develop one's realization still more and bring it finally to the point of direct perception, in which all need for an image has disappeared and one's mental consciousness is able to contact its object directly. And the final purpose of practices of mental imagery or visualization is not to create a certain type of image in the mind, it's to change the mind. And so even though the image isn't kind of the important thing, it's integral to the process of getting to seeing the object directly. So an inferential cognizer is a type of conceptual consciousness which realizes or incontrovertibly gets at an object of comprehension which cannot be initially realized by direct perception. And again, it's generated through the process of reasoning, and it is said to be produced in dependence on a correct sign acting as its basis. And so we can use the familiar worldly example as we look across the view here and in the neighbor's house, and we see smoke billowing from the house. And we immediately infer that inside the house there is fire. The basis, the sign in dependence on which this inference was generated, was the presence of smoke. Because there is a fact of an invariable or constant relationship between the presence of an effect, in this case the smoke, and the preceding existence of its cause, fire, we can correctly infer that fire is present. Such knowledge is not direct perception, for we did not actually see the fire. Nonetheless, it is valid, reliable knowledge. When we have incontrovertible inferential cognition, it is as reliable a form of knowledge as a direct perceiver. The only difference is that direct perceiver contacts its object directly and non-mistakenly, whereas the inferential cognizer, being conceptual, must get at its object through the medium of an object. This generic image appears to thought as if it were the actual object, although it is not. And in this respect, a conceptual consciousness is mistaken with respect to the object that is appearing to it. This element of error does not interfere with the accuracy with which that consciousness comprehends the object represented by the generic image, and so it is correct and incontrovertible knower. Inferential cognizers are by definition not mistaken with respect to the object comprehended, being incontrovertible in the sense that their realization is firm. This gives them their force and validity. So there are three types of inferential cognizers. What are the three types?
Depending on authoritative testimony. Inference through renown. Inference by the power
Of the fact. So the first one, the inference depending on authoritative testimony, or inference through belief. This is an inference acquired through belief in a valid statement, such as the word of the Buddha. So an example would be the fact that ethical conduct in this life leads to a happy rebirth, or that generosity leads to wealth in a future life. These two statements by the Buddha are true because they are not contradicted by the threefold analysis, which we'll get to in a bit. Then inference through renown. This is an inferential understanding that can arise through knowing something that is commonly held to be true. So when a name is given to a particular object, similar objects are then conventionally called by the same name. So even though this looks like a weird telephone, a spaceship telephone, nonetheless, it's similar enough and functions in the same way, so we can call it telephone. So these objects of inference through renown only exist really by being labeled. And then inference by the power of the fact. These are called correct signs. And this is so called because it is through the quality of the facts of the phenomena that we are able to use logical reasoning to understand it. The power of the fact means that the quality is there through the very existence of the phenomena. So an example is fire. It has the nature of hot and burning, and the qualities of hot and burning exist because of the fire itself. As soon as fire arises, the qualities arise by the power of the fact. Or another example would be, as soon as the aggregates arise, they arise with their own fact of impermanence. And we can also say that the aggregates are miserable, or suffering, selfless, empty, because these qualities also arise through the power of the fact. And realizing these qualities by the power of the fact is inferential understanding through the nature of the phenomena. And these natural powers are stable and cannot be changed by anyone, not even the Buddha. So, think of some inferences especially related to your life. Can you think of some that you adhere to? Maybe in a worldly way first.
I have one. It's I work hard physically because it helps my mind to rest.
You work hard physically because it helps your mind to rest. Okay. Okay. Others?
Similar.
Yep.
I need to keep physically active because it is a cooperative cause for health and longevity.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to be physically active because it is a cooperative cause to health and longevity. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? No? Okay. Let's go on to the next question. Huh? Pardon?
I went the wrong conception route.
Oh.
Mine are all wrong conceptions.
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to go there?
Sure.
There's a whole
Okay.
series.
Okay.
This is my wrong conception conundrum. I am loved because I am praised. I am praised because I am loved. When I am not praised, it's because I'm not loved. I am disliked because I am not praised. I am worthwhile because I am liked or loved. Therefore, I am worthwhile because I am praised.
Praised.
These are wrong conceptions, but I do live by them.
Yeah.
This is big.
Thank you for sharing those. Yeah. Mm. Those are big.
They're really big. They are wrong conceptions.
That was very good.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd like to.
Value.
Yeah. We'd like to praise you for those. Mm.
Okay.
Well, hello. So, the next question is, inferences are relevant to our Dharma practice and our daily life. Often we don't use them correctly. Can you identify an inference that is relevant to your Dharma practice, and what are your reasons for believing in the inference? So it's harder. Somebody? Anybody?
I have one. I didn't write it down though. But
Okay.
what I have is Venerable Thupten Chödrön is a reliable spiritual guide on the basis of the clarity and wisdom of her teachings, on the basis of the observed action of seeing her keep precepts over a number of years, on the basis of her reputation as a teacher, and on the basis of her kind of renown, her great Dharma knowledge.
You had one? Yeah?
I think
Ruby, can they hear, do you think, up so close?
no one has complained so far.
Okay, good. I'm so thankful.
We should check to hear.
Yeah.
Could repeat what Venerable Trini just said.
Can you hear the people commenting in the room? And we have a lag time too, so.
Well, someone says you have contagious laughter.
Okay.
But I'm not full.
I guess so.
I guess so, okay. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, great.
So I need to hear teachings on the same topic again and again, because it is one of the causes for deeper understanding.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
But is that not actually an inference, and in fact something you know to be true because you experience the knowledge later on? If you study, then you understand more, and you know you understand more. It's almost of like a logical fact, not an inference.
Logical
No one can
fact.
prove it that you know more except you, because you've learned more. Right? But at one time you did not know 4 times 4 equals 16,
Yeah.
but then you studied and now you know 4
Yeah.
times 4 equals 16.
Well, others could know if you showed them your knowledge. Yeah. I don't know. Anybody else have a comment?
I think the inference has to, you know, you're proving it for yourself, you're not proving it for anyone else.
And I'm kind of saying the same thing.
But I suppose the question is, what's the proof? In that inference, what's the proof?
Would you say it one more time?
I need to hear teachings on the same topic again and again, because it's one of the causes for deeper understanding.
So hearing teachings again and again is a cause for understanding. Is that the proof? Is that the pervasion?
The pervasion, yeah.
So I need to hear teachings again and again because that is a cause for deeper understanding.
That's the
That's That's the thesis, yeah.
Well, the
So is the thesis true?
Yes. I have one here, but it's not that one.
The reason in the subject. So, the last part C of it was what?
Because it's one of the causes for deeper understanding.
So when you have, can that apply to the subject? That you can have deeper understanding, I guess.
Yes.
The presence of the reason in the subject, right?
Yeah.
Because it is
So
one of the
It's
causes
possible
for
for
deeper
you to have deeper
understanding.
understanding.
Right.
I need to hear teachings on the same topic again and again.
Yeah, so it is possible for you to have deeper understanding because your mind is empty of inherent existence.
And then the next one was,
The reverse or the counter.
well, no, then you have the pervasion and then the counter-pervasion. Those don't relate to the subject.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If you don't listen to
If C is
teachers.
true, then B is true, or
Yes.
this was reversed. If you have, was there teachings, if your reason was teaching, I hear teachings a lot.
Again and again, because it's one of the
Yeah.
causes for deeper understanding.
Oh, it's the deeper understandings that, what's C in your thing? You know,
Yeah,
we go A,
that's-
B, C. A is the subject, B is the predicate.
Predicate.
C is the reason.
Yes, I
Reason.
will gain deeper
I will gain-
understanding.
Maybe deeper,
I
yeah.
will
It's
gain deeper
necessary,
understanding.
it's necessarily true that I'll gain deeper understanding if I,
Listen to the teachings.
If I listen to the teachings. Yeah,
that's true.
yeah, that's true.
Is it true?
I don't think it's true
Well,
necessarily.
not necessarily for everyone, but.
The subject here is I.
Right, the subject is
Yeah,
I.
The subject isn't in here.
Right, on the counter-pervasion.
Oh, yeah, so the pervasion and the counter-pervasion are only looking at the relationship between the predicate and the reason. Sorry. To think.
Yeah.
Hard time thinking. It's A, B, and C. A is the subject, B is the predicate, C is
See, it's the reason, yeah.
The presence of the reason of the subject is C compared to A.
A.
The pervasion is C compared to B, but it's then stated in the form of
If.
if
If.
yes, then necessarily this,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
It is the predicate, if it is reason, then it is necessarily the predicate.
Right. And the next one is if not B, then not
Right.
C.
Not
Because
C.
if you listened to the teachings again and again, but had an inattentive perceiver every single time, you wouldn't
You
necessarily.
wouldn't necessarily, that's true, yeah.
You
But
will
that doesn't,
get
but that isn't in there exactly.
No, you will get something.
If you state it, if C, then necessarily B, right?
Right.
So if I have a deeper understanding, I necessarily need to hear teaching?
No.
Well, there's no, well, I don't know enough to know how to word it, sorry.
Yeah,
I'd have to get my cheat sheet out.
I think it's
That's true.
If I hear teachings again and again, I will necessarily get a deeper understanding.
It's-
That's not
there's no
necessarily
either.
true.
When it's B, then, when it's C, then it's, I'm gonna go get that sheet.
okay,
You can go on and I'll come back with this.
okay, all right. Well,
We'll come back to this one.
Yeah.
I actually think
It's-
it's changed my mind. I think it's
yeah, okay. So let me do one that I wrote out here.
Yes.
So the aggregates are impermanent because they are products.
right.
So the basic agreement, establishing the presence of the reason on the subject. Subject is aggregates. Understanding that the person is a product because they are produced by causes and conditions. That's the basic agreement. The forward pervasion, understanding that the reason is pervaded by the predicate, impermanence. If something is a product, it is necessarily impermanent. The reverse or counter pervasion, understanding that the non-predicate is pervaded by the non-sign. Products necessarily do not belong to the class of permanent. Or if it is permanent, it cannot be a product. So when you apply this, the aggregates are impermanent because there are products, it works in this syllogism.
Right.
Yeah? Now Vinabatarpa's back.
Yeah, I
Good.
have this, but keep going, because I want to find their exact words. She, well, I guess she did say it. Okay, but we have to just substitute things. Okay. So the subject is
I.
Aye.
I. The predicate is
Need to hear teachings.
Need to hear
Study
teachings
teachings.
on the same topic again.
study teachings.
Need to hear teachings.
Teachings.
Teachings, yeah.
Teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're
Teachings.
trying to prove, so what you're trying to prove is, need to hear teachings.
Need to
Because
hear.
we have-
Need to hear teachings, yeah.
Reason, because,
I will gain deeper understanding.
No, because of
Because it's
cause.
I actually think you need to reverse this around. I
Yeah.
will get deeper understanding
Standing
because I listened
to
to teachings.
teachings, yeah.
So I think that's more
Yep.
accurate.
Yep.
So then it would be deeper understanding.
Standing.
I will gain.
Well, you could say that, but I don't think it's exactly right. Anyway, then because, the reason, because,
So what predicate would it be then? It's not.
well, like when we have the one about sound, is impermanent, it's just impermanent, it's not is impermanent, it's just impermanent.
Permanent.
Is the proper thing.
The predicate. Is that reason?
Impermanent is the predicate, not is impermanent. It's just impermanent, so I think it might be the same thing. Deeper understanding.
For just understanding.
Yeah, whatever, deeper understanding seems right. And because of listening to teachings. So then the thesis is, I will get deeper understanding. That's the thesis.
Yep.
And the criteria, the presence of this reason and the subject. The
I listen to
C applies to A is C. So receiving teachings can apply to A, you can do that.
Yeah.
A is C. You are not. Yeah, teachings.
Yeah, you are not teaching.
But you're capable of teaching. It's kind of like smoke also isn't fire. There's two kinds of these probations. Anyway, close enough.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah.
If you go to teachings, yeah, that's what's hard. Because
Yeah.
it's like this is the other kind of pervasion. Where
Yep.
it's one that is not is.
Yep.
It's not like a copulative one, they said. It's the one that is more related. I can't remember the name. It's like smoke isn't fire.
Fire.
But when there's smoke,
There is fire, yeah.
So
It's that kind.
Right, it's the result.
Yeah. Well, it's associated. There's a relationship, but I don't know the exact words for it.
But otherwise, hearing, thinking, and feeling wouldn't be true.
But it seems like these
Yeah.
things do go together. Like, you can't really deny it, that, if you hear teachings, you'll get deeper understanding. That's a possibility. It's not
Yes.
like if you turn on a light bulb, you'll get deeper understanding. Well, maybe
Yeah.
you would.
Yeah.
If you go to sleep,
Yeah.
like they're related.
Yeah.
And then if it cannot be, let's see, if it is not B, it cannot be C. If you don't,
You don't listen to teachings, you don't get a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
teachings.
That's true.
That's true.
Solitary realization.
Well, they did in
There it
previous
is.
lives.
Yeah,
They actually studied a lot,
a lot. Previous lives.
and they just pulled it up.
Okay.
Okay, we did as far as we
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. That's good. The wheels are creaking. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. What are the three types of phenomena in reference to inferences?
Evident.
Evident,
Yes.
Slightly hidden.
slightly obscured.
And
Yeah.
very
And very obscure. It's an example of evident.
blue sky.
Okay.
Hopes, desires,
Okay.
internal gain.
Maitri's
It's like
looking at the small particles of matter on the carpet.
These are evident.
Yep. Slightly obscure phenomena.
Emptiness,
Self-improvement.
Okay. And very obscure.
karma.
Karma. Okay.
Is there anything else that anybody have for that one?
For very obscure.
Yeah. Oh, when you were born,
Yeah.
When you were, yeah. When you were born. Yeah.
unless you were adopted.
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah.
Rebirth. I guess I think they can prove it by logic.
Slightly, they say slightly. It's, yeah, you can use logic on that one. I think Venerable said that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the cause of rebirth is very
Hidden.
right. Because you have to be able to know someone's karma.
Kind of a particular reason.
Yeah, for a particular rebirth, you mean? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Of the rebirth
Or
period.
Or maybe also, the cause of the result that we're experiencing in this life. Is that a very hidden phenomenon?
The specific causes.
Right.
Uh-huh. The specific causes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. So let's go on to the threefold analysis. Let me talk first a little bit about this one. We're talking about inference by authoritative testimony. So this one is used to gain knowledge about very obscure phenomena, those that we are unable to know by means of direct perceivers or inference by the power of the fact. This particular type of inference uses the word of people whom we have examined and determined to be reliable authorities on the subject as a reason to accept something as true. The example, I think this was from Geshe Tekchok used, was someone who wants to enroll in a school trusts the instructions given by the people working at the administrative office to tell them what procedures to follow. The validity of this inference hinges upon the reliability of the person whose testimony we're trusting. Such a person should know the information, have no cognitive disability, be someone who tells the truth. So we have a responsibility to examine the qualifications and not believe blindly. And when used in spiritual practice, then this form of inference can be called inference by belief or scriptural inference. And it involves using reliable scriptural passages in order to understand particular points that cannot be understood otherwise. So it's used in cases where the topic is very obscure, cannot be known by other cognizers, and it's important to understand so that we can progress spiritually. Let's see, topics such as subtle workings of the law of karma, the subtle layout of the bodhisattva paths and grounds, the inexpressible qualities of the resultant state of enlightenment. And so to correctly infer that a scriptural passage is accurate and free from fault, we must test it by means of the threefold analysis. And so what is this threefold analysis? Anybody?
One, we see that there's no reason to reject the scripture in terms of how it presents evident phenomena. We see there's no reason to reject the scripture in terms of its presentation of slightly obscure phenomena, i.e. we analyze the presentation and see if it can be refuted by inference of the power of the fact. 3, there's no reason to reject the scripture in terms of its presentation of very obscure phenomena, therefore. And in that case, we check whether the explicit and implicit meanings are free from contradiction.
Yeah.
And then we check whether the former and latter passages are free from contradiction.
Do you have examples of those last two?
Yeah, the example of this is straight from the text, right? So Heart Sutra is an example of the implicit or implicit. So the explicit meaning is wisdom and the implicit meaning is method.
Method, yeah.
And then the B is what a sutra says in one place doesn't contradict what it says in another.
In another place.
However, I had a big question that came up when I was writing this out, and that was how this applies, or does this apply in the case of the 3 turnings of the wheel, where we recognize that the Buddha taught many different approaches about what is the nature of reality. So you have to have a commentary or an interpretation to understand that these are not contradictory, right? So where does that sit in all this?
Yeah, that's a good...
The 3 turnings of the wheel in particular, that's what you were saying?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, you know how we study that, you know, the Buddha said it one place, phenomena are inherently existent.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And so forth and so forth. So we have a good explanation of why that's not contradictory, but you have to have a commentary on it. So it's just a question about how does that fit with it?
How does that fit with it? Yeah, yeah.
We say that one. I mean, we will say.
We will save that one for men with children. Yeah.
Three terms.
Yep.
Can you explain the threefold analysis again for us?
I can go through kind of exactly what Venerable Chuni just said. Yeah. So the first. You mean just go over the three again? Yeah, yeah. So the first, there is no reason to reject this scripture in terms of its presentation of evident phenomena. To assess this, we examine if its presentation of evident phenomena can be refuted by direct perception. The second, there is no reason to reject this statement or text in terms of its presentation of slightly obscure phenomena. To assess this, we examine if its presentation of slightly obscure phenomena can be refuted by inference by the power of the fact. The third, there is no reason to reject this statement or text in terms of its presentation of very obscure phenomena. And to assess this, we examine two factors. In the presentation of very obscure phenomena, the explicit and implied meanings are free from contradiction. The explicit meaning is the evident theme of the scripture, while the implicit meaning is other topics that are the basis. And so, for example, in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, the explicit meaning is the doctrine of emptiness. The implicit meaning is the stages of the paths, which are the progressive levels of realization of emptiness. And then in the presentation of very obscure phenomena, the former and latter passages are free from contradiction. That is, if what the scripture says in one place does not contradict what it says in another. And then Venerable Children, that's where she brought up the thing about Vulture's Peak, that when you see it, all those people could not be on that small peak, or small hill, really, mountain. So, you know, how does that happen? And so then you realize that many of the beings were highly realized and were in different form than these gross bodies on the hill.
And that was considered to be evident phenomena to a bodhisattva.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, evident phenomena to a bodhisattva, yeah. 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 So evident phenomena and then slightly obscure phenomena are really the first choices in gaining knowledge. In scriptural inference, you know, that's not the first choice, you know. Okay, so now we'll go on to subsequent cognizers. So a little bit about subsequent cognizers. So the first moment of a direct perceiver comprehends its object to the force of experience. The first moment of an inference does so in dependence on a sign. For both of these types of perception, later moments within the same continuum of perception, while still apprehending the same object, no longer rely on either experience or a sign, but are merely induced through the force of the first moment of cognition. The strength of the initial realization has not been lost, and therefore subsequent cognizers are incontrovertible knowers that do realize their objects. The element of realization is not gained through their own power, for they themselves do not do the removing of superimpositions which enables realizations to occur. Rather, they realize that which has already been realized by the former moment of consciousness, which has already removed the superimposition and which induces them. So, the next question, a mind on the path of seeing goes to the path of meditation in the same session, in the same continuity. The next session of meditative equipoise, the first moment of realizing emptiness. Is it a prime cognizer or a subsequent cognizer? And what is the second moment? Yeah?
Isn't there a debate about this?
Yeah?
According to which school?
Debatable. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, debatable.
So Tantricus says that it's a subsequent cognizer, and Prasangicus says it's a prime cognizer. Is that true?
Within the school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's, I couldn't find my notes. Does somebody have the notes right on it? I can do it from memory.
Well, one.
No, do you have it?
Well, yeah, I think I do. She said that when you get to the path of seeing and have direct perception of emptiness, what kind of mind is that? A yogic, reliable, direct perceiver. If you end a meditation session, break, and later come back on the same object, is it the first moment or a subsequent cognizer? Some people say it's a prime cognizer because you're newly generating a continuum of a direct perceiver. Others say that it's a subsequent cognizer because you're engaging in an object due to the force of the previous inference you had.
That was the discussion that even, all the way through that path of what? All of those going through the Bodhisattva grounds, there were subsequent cognizers until you got to
Way, way high. I forget.
well, as you go through each one of them, and then you're a subsequent cognizer for eons as you go to the next ground.
She also said if you had an inference in a previous life and you had it in this lifetime, I think the first moment would be a prime cognizer because it's this life. You'd still have to think about it a bit and realize it. But she said both reasons made sense to her. So what are the two types of conceptual subsequent cognizers?
One induced by a direct perceiver. And one induced by
And what are the four direct subsequent cognizers?
Sense, mental, apperceptive, and yogic.
Yes. And the two conceptual subsequent cognizers?
This is where you have the induced part.
induced by a direct perceiver and induced by inference.
Yeah, those induced by a direct perceiver and those induced by inference. Yep. And so the last question, when we see something, then we think about it. What type of cognizer is it?
Perceptual subsequent cognizer is induced by a visual direct perceiver.
A conceptual subsequent cognizer induced by a direct perceiver. So what's an example?
Looking at one of the examples is that looking at the color of the blue Anagarika outfits, and then going to India and Ruby and her trying to remember what color that was to get a fabric that matched it. Mochi and I had the same experience.
Pardon?
Then Mochi and I had the same subsequent conceptual cognition.
So it is relevant to our life, see? So we can see how not so accurate our generic images are. Yeah, not so accurate.
It can't be very great, right? It was a subsequent cognizer. I don't know, I have in my notes that a conceptual subsequent cognizer is induced by a sense direct perceiver soon So, for example, I was seeing green, then thinking green soon after.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's such a huge light, kind of like you go to India, that becomes memory.
Yeah, that's memory, you're right.
What was that an example of, though? Because she did use that as a direct perceiver, and then going to India and recalling it conceptually and trying to remember the image.
So maybe so.
It was her example.
That was her example, yeah. So that's a good question to see if that's memory or,
Yeah.
yeah, what length of span of time. Because certainly the longer it goes, the more inaccurate the image gets, I think. Yeah. Okay, we've used our time.
Good job, Tish.
Thank you.
Good job.